Mr. Dalbir Singh, co-chairman of the International Organization Assembly of People of Eurasia and National Secretary, All India Congress Committee. Ms. Achala Maulik, famous writer and former government secretary. Mr. Raman Babushkin, Minister Council and my very close friend and the pupil of Guruji Kadakin, like all we are. A person who knows about Russian-Indian diplomatic relations, all the secrets of the present day and good history of the old days. Mr. Krishnan Angunathan, as I told, our old and dearest friend, retired foreign secretary and the former Indian ambassador to Russia. Ms. Meenakshi Lekhi, member of Parliament, Lok Sabha. Dr. Tatiana Shumyan, I presented her, head of the Center for Indian Studies. Mr. Ashoka Sajankar, former Indian ambassador and former director of the Jawaharlal Nehru Center in Moscow. Mr. G.P. Agarwal, famous politician, former member of parliament, president of Delhi Pradesh Committee and patron of the Friendship Society of India-Russia Friendship Society. Ms. Pratibha Prahlad, President Prashida Foundation, Mr. Babunishwar Kalita, President of India-Russia Foundation, and Dr. Rajesh Mehta, General Secretary of this foundation, and Dr. Nilakshi Surinarayan, Professor of the Department of Slavonic and Hungarian Studies, Delhi University. These are our speakers, 12 speakers. So, including me, my speech is over. I again heartily congratulate all of you and many others people whom I cannot name now. It's really, for me, it's a really big, heartbreaking festival of friendship and of a fantastic chance to meet you all from various cities. At least the things that we can gather for our event, people from 5-6 cities in India and abroad, is something good that we get from this event in the life of humanity, which will battle with him and we will win. Bhagwan ki icha hoga, inshallah, very soon. So with this words, I finish my introductory speech, and I invite Mr. Dalbir Singh, Major Dalbir Singh, to address us about the 49th anniversary of the historical treaty, friendship and peace, friendship and cooperation between.
Thank you, Mr. Joski.
Thank you.
Mr. Babushkin, Mr. Joski, all distinguished friends on this panel here today. It's a very historical moment, 49th anniversary of a very important and strategic treaty between India and Russia, treaty of peace, friendship and cooperation. Our relationship has been deeply rooted in history. Even long before 1947, when we established diplomatic ties, India and Russia, then Soviet Union, had a lot of exchanges in terms of their scholars, their artists, their philosophers from time to time. 47, we established our diplomatic relationship. And I'll touch upon some of the major milestones. All period through the 50s and 60s, just after independence. That's the time we needed our fundamental infrastructure. We needed technical and financial systems. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
We needed technical and financial systems.
Voice is breaking, editor.
Can you hear, ma'am? Can you hear me, ma'am?
You are audible,
It's a little
Dalbir. Maybe everyone else can put their mics on silent except the speaker. I think that will be very helpful.
Yes, yes, please now put the mics. Absolutely right, Ashok ji. Please, dear panelists, put all the mics silent mode. Since only speaker can speak. Thank you.
May I resume?
Please resume.
While I come back again, it's a very historical moment for us. 49th year ago, India signed a very historical treaty, the Treaty of Peace, Friendship and Cooperation with Soviet Union. It was very important on the principles of sovereignty, good neighborliness, peaceful coexistence. And it was a backdrop of a situation that was developing the new Sino-US coziness, and US had got close to Pakistan, and there were clouds of insecurity building for us. And this treaty eventually helped us a great deal in terms of what we during the 71 war, in which Bangladesh was liberated. But I'll also touch upon that we have very, very historical roots. Even before 47, there's not many exchanges between eminent people, between Soviet Union and India. And of course, after independence, we established a diplomatic relationship, and particularly just post-independence infrastructure development. I think we have a lot to thank the Soviet Union, but for them, but for their technical and financial support. I mean, look at some of our premier institutions. You know, Bhilai, Bukharo, all our steel plants, our first aluminium plant in Korba, first engineering plant in Ranchi, for our first antibiotic plant in Rishikesh, a mining plant in Durgapur, or even our refineries in Varanasi and Mathura were all set up with Soviet assistance, all through those periods of 50s and 60s. And in fact, I'll tell you some of our best known undertakings, public sector, ONGC, Bharat Heavy Electricals, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, which has today been commissioned by the Indian government to produce 106 fighter aircraft. All they have been built with support of Russian Union. And not only that, even institutions like IIT Mumbai, we have a petroleum research institute in Dehradun, built with. Even we have a metallurgical institute in Vizag. There are a huge amount of institutions and fundamental infrastructure which was laid in the 50s, 60s, till the 70s. These are very, very major milestones for our initial social development. And then, of course, we moved into Iraq's 1962 war with China, and it was a very devastating moment for us. And during the war, the fact that Soviet Union remained neutral was very, very important. Their neutrality itself was a great support for us. Then 1965 war with Pakistan, the way whole thing was, peace was brought about, and Kosidin brought about the agreement and truce, everyone knows. I don't have to dwell on that. Of course, 1971 war, I was fighting myself. I was a young captain in the army that time. I fought both in the eastern as well as western sector. I'm one of those few privileged people who have both eastern and the time. And let me tell you that the feeling in the armed forces during the last few days of the war was, but for support of Soviet Union, it was very difficult for us to liberate Bangladesh, because you know the US 7th Fleet was already in the Indian Ocean, and things were very, very bad for us at that moment militarily. And with the kind of situation that prevailed, we received enormous support from Soviet Union. I don't mind saying openly, we won the war, great support from Soviet Union. And then, whether it's our atomic energy, whether it was space research, our first man into space, squad leader Rakesh Sharma, again with technical support of Soviet Union. Even our first satellite into space, Aryabhatta, which we launched in 1975, again Soviet Union. And yes, we should also introspect and look at some of the lows through the relationships. I think after collapse of Soviet Union in the early 90s, well, there were few years, I quite admit, and we must confess, because that's how we improve, we introspect well. We lost a few 5 to 6 years. Well, it was possibly at the lowest ebb, and because I think both we and Soviet Union, we turned to West for capital, investment, technology. We were ushering into the liberalization of our economy. We ushered into major reforms in 91 under the Congress regime. And so was Russia trying to dilute and dismantle some of its state controls. And we are both trying to cope with changing realities in our systems. And we lost a few years. And that's the period. And until I think Primakov came, and then some movement started in 93, 95, 96, and in 97 and 98, visit Primakov to India and visit our Indian Prime Minister to Russia. It helped a great deal. It rekindled hope for strengthening relationship all over again. Also globally, Russia was beginning to realize that most of its interests were being opposed by US and its allies, well, whether it came to taking on its former allies and former territories of Soviet Union, which were now being taken in lap of NATO and European Union, and also vulnerability of Central Asia to many of these forces. And Russia realized that its best foreign policy options to be realized in CIS, near abroad, and all its old allies in West Asia and South Asia. And I think this was a very important point of realization, and which really strengthened our bonds all over again. And since then, we haven't looked back. And this was very important because now we were moving into an era when there was a larger convergence of interest. We were becoming more relevant to each other's priorities. Russia recognized India's role in South Asia, and we recognize Russia's dominance in Central Asia, Russia's dominance also in areas which were formerly part of Soviet Union. And their policy and protest, well, we are all aware, and I think it has been with that general awareness and general recognition of some of these points that we realize that our relation must grow from strength to strength. And because Russians themselves experienced the bombing in Kosovo and some of the things that NATO was doing was not acceptable. We were looking at multipolarity. We're looking at a world order, a multipolar world order, democratic order based on principles of law, based on equality, based on mutual trust, based on cooperation. And with this trust, we have continued to grow. Well, in terms of business and trade, well, sometimes it troubles me because every few years we make resolutions, and I mean it is phenomenal that over the years we have institutionalized few things, like we have developed annual summits every year where the prime ministers of heads of two countries meet. Then we have nearly intergovernmental commissions on every subject, from defense to economic, science, technology, culture, but our trade must increase. We've been able to reach up to only about $10 billion, which is, considering the intensity and depth of relationship, $10 billion is very little bit of trade. And I think we have promised last year that we'll take it up to $25 billion in a matter of next 2 years or so. And we hope that there will be effort on both sides. And we have identified weaknesses. If there are weaknesses in the visa system, in connectivity of airlines, or even if there are any other issues in terms of bureaucratic hurdles, I think we have to look into very, very seriously and candidly and address those issues. Because our trade must improve. Because at the moment, a very large part of trade is the defense cooperation, a very large part of mainstay. Of course, there's a huge amount of thing that India has done. In fact, all through, whether it was 71, 65, 71, Kargil, and all conflicts, but for relying on defense equipment and sustained spares and supplies. This was a very important issue during the Kargil. We experienced that some weaponry which we had got from origin other than USSR, there were problems about spares. And Russia has always been a very reliable, trustworthy, and a time-tested partner. Therefore, I think our mainstay of our cooperation has been defense, which has been a very, very key pillar. And even today, in terms of defense, we have BrahMos, which is the biggest, most devastating missile, S-400 air defense systems, Kamo helicopters, infantry combat vehicles, Sukhoi 30 aircrafts, T-90 tanks, stealth frigates, shipbuilding, nuclear submarines, and even infantry combat vehicles, BMPs, multi-barrel launchers, a very large part of weaponry, we still rely on Russia. And not only that, our entire nuclear energy for peaceful purposes, Kundalam project, Unit 1, 2, Unit 3, 4, I think most have been delivered. I mean, I remember in 98, we needed heavy water. We had a lot of problems, and there was no way we could have procured. We tried many places in the world, and only Russia was able to support us during such crises to keep our plants going. And I think we must build on whatever we have so far. The world is changing rapidly, and this pandemic, COVID, has also devastated societies, individuals, and nations. And the global order also seems partly in transition. What order will take place tomorrow, one doesn't know. But all I can say, India and Russia have a very, very important role to play in global affairs. Both of us are very responsible nations. And before I forget, I also like to compliment President Putin and Russian health experts in putting together a vaccine in this time of great global adversity and panic. And I'm sure the rest of the world will be able to benefit from this vaccine. I'm told there are already orders for 20 billion vaccines in the pipeline. And I'm sure India will also be beneficiary of this vaccine. And but there are other challenges that India and Russia jointly face. There is challenges of climate change, there's challenges of poverty elevation, there's challenges of cybercrime, food security. There are a number of global challenges, terrorism, and I think we are looking at it. We have a very coordinated approach in reviewing things annually, and even through the intergovernmental commission at bureaucratic level. All these things are reviewed from time to time. But we have to, the world is changing. I said, the challenges are very complex, and we both have a dominant role to play, but we must navigate through these situations by looking at this perspective, looking at the regional issues, looking at the global issues, and looking at how we can together. We are part of BRICS, Shanghai Cooperation, RIC, G20, many other formats where we manage to meet, we manage to have important meetings, share our views on various very critical problems facing the world today. But we have to continue to grow in strength because it is a larger global interest, it is in larger interest of international peace, stability, and harmony that India, Russia continue to grow ever as they have been over the last so many decades. And I have no doubt it will serve the world interest better, it will serve our interest better, that we continue to rely on one another. Notwithstanding whatever few things may have crept, whatever sometimes in terms of foreign policy needs, we may have diversified our options. But one thing we have, both of us have vowed and promised always, we have never undermined each other's geopolitical and strategic interest. We are never, and people in India love Russia. The word Russia means warmth, understanding, friendliness, brotherhood. This is something very rare. I've been to Russia at least 12 times, and this is something remarkable I've not experienced in the rest of the world. And since time is short, I would like to touch upon some more things, but I'm sure our relationship will continue to grow from strength to strength, and we all are going to benefit with this phenomenal friendship, edifice of friendship that has grown on trust, mutual cooperation, and benefit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dalbirji. As usual, your talk is always extra informative and absolutely impressing. So I feel that half of speakers has nothing to add after your speech. Dear friends, definitely Dalbirji, he was the first to speak. So like first and last speakers always have the privilege about the time, but for your information, we have 10, 11, 12 speakers So let's try to do it in 7-10 minutes. Otherwise, we'll miss in India we'll miss the lunch, which is very important during our itinerary. So thanks once again, Dalbirji, thanks a lot for covering various questions from official up to unofficial platform. So now I would like to request Ms. Achala Maulik from Bangalore to tell us a few words, because I tell you that for last 1.5 decades, Achala ji is doing a lot in the field of Russian literature, Russian history. She is the author of various books. Last one was about the century of the Russian Great October Revolution of 1917. And I hope that many new books will come from her pen, and we'll be happy to read them all. So Achala ji, please.
It's nice to see you. Indo-Russian relation. The first speaker, as you say, has summarized many aspects of India and Russian relationship. So I won't go into that and repeat them. What I would like to say is that Russia, this is my perception as a student of history and literature and having worked in government, that Russia has been a source of great inspiration to India. And this is before independence, way back in 1908, when India was facing great hardship and persecution after the failed revolutions, revolts of 1905, particularly in Bengal. And a group of writers wrote to, of all people, Tolstoy, not to government. And that was the greatness of Leo Tolstoy, that he leapt over all barriers of politics and economics and got to the heart of the matter. And in a very moving letter, he wrote to Mr. Ramseshan, who wrote a very pathetic letter saying, you are whole places in the world. You are known all over the world. And I, as an Indian, can hardly call my country my own. We are oppressed in our own land, which was the scenario in 1908. And Tolstoy wrote that very stern letter that it's up to you to reclaim your land. It's up to you to reclaim your honor and pride. And then he listed a number of strategies. Don't go to their courts. Don't join their administration. Don't be in their army. And paralyze government. And this became the strategy which Gandhiji later adopted for independence movement. It became the non-cooperation movement. So perhaps the relationship began then, the political inspiration. Later, and Russia was still not known because living under British domination, they wanted us to know only their literature, their politics, their greatness. And Russia was not known except to political thinkers and great literary figures. And then one land development was, which I've written about in my biography of Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, was when he went to Russia, Soviet Union. He was one of the first foreigners to go, and certainly probably the second Indian to go there. And he went rather reluctantly. He said, a little confused as to what he would see. And no, if you think of first glance, Rabindranath was a very religious man. He came from a landowning family. He was one of the aristocratic families of India and the reform movement. He didn't know what to expect. But Andrew Lunacharsky was the Commissar of Education Institute. He came and he wrote one of the most moving travelers that I've ever read, next Marco Polo's, that what a great country it is. And this man who was so different from the Soviet ethos, praised Soviet Union to the skies and said that it's remarkable how they've thrown off the tyranny of 1,000 years, and went on to discuss the social and economic, literary, cultural innovations they have made. It's an eye-opener. In 1931, that's almost 100 years ago, it was an eye-opener for Indians who read it. And the British government saw the danger in this book, Letters from Russia, so they banned it. But you know, Bengalis are very innovative people. So the underground press in Vishwabharati, which began printing this book, translated all over India. And that's how Russia came to be known to India as a source of great inspiration through Gurudev's Letters from Russia. And then, when I was researching on a book, we discovered that even before independence, Pandit Nehru had sent friend Krishna Menon to meet the Russians in Molotov in Paris during their conference. And it was then that he made overtures, expressed the wish of the Indian people to be friends of Russia. And Pandit Nehru, his political acumen, realized that a country like us emerging from the imperial world, a former colonial empire, would need friends, and friends who offered no strings. It was real friendship without strings. And I remember writing a very funny article, essay, when I was a student at London University, saying how this alliance was so different from other alliances, NATO, CENTO, E2, where there were stipulations of what the member states had to do. We had no alliance with Russia. We were neutral. And yet, paradoxically, it was Russian power, it was Russian friendship, it was Russian respect that enabled India to maintain this very stern and robust neutrality. So we have this ship was of benefit very greatly to India in the opening years of independence, and the previous speaker has already outlined the various landmarks, various opportunities which the friendship with Russia allowed us in the field of defense and warfare. So when we think back, and of course 1991 was a very turning point, I would say, in Indo-Russian relationship, when we then realized who were their friends. And I think Bangladesh also, when I went there, Russia is held in great reverence. That she was behind the scenes, the person who has stood there, war of liberation. And there are so many aspects in which one could speak of this long and very evolved and a very rich and enduring relationship. And we hope we'll be able to commemorate the Indo-Russian Treaty, which was next year, 50 years. And as a Russophile, I wish Russia all the best, and I'm sure Russians wish us the best. And I'm very happy that the vaccine is being developed in Russia, which will end this nightmare which we are all going through. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Achala ji, as usual, charming speech, and from various new corners of vision that you projected on the historic in the Soviet treaty. And first of all, I would like to congratulate you, as far as I know, with your first experience of online conferencing. So it was excellent, marvelous, thanks to internet in Bangalore and in Delhi. I hope next time you will have a big camera on your computer, which will show more interiors in your charming home. And once again, thanks a lot. It's a real pleasure to see you so close to us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Now you see it's the time to listen to the official position and to the official information from the Russian side. And the best person who could do it now It's a minister counselor of the Russian embassy in New India, our old and good friend, Mr. Roman Babushkin. Please, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Dear sirs, it's a great honor and privilege to join you today at a very special occasion and on the eve of the Indian Independence Day. This is an opportunity to remind ourselves that history is what we are today. I would like to appreciate the efforts of the organizers, and first of all, Mr. Rozovsky, who is, along with his current official position as the director of the Russian Indian Center of Science and Culture here in New Delhi, is one of the symbols of the current Russian-Indian relations and one of my greatest teachers. Thank you so much. The Treaty of Peace, Friendship and Cooperation between the Republic of India and the Soviet Union, signed on 9th of August 1971, was an integral part of the range of events that happened 49 years ago, which divided the history of this region into before and after. Third war between India and Pakistan, creation of Bangladesh and international legitimization of this act by the United Nations Security Council resolution put forward by the Soviet Union. And thanks to this treaty, the US attempts to attack India were blocked. Those events demonstrated that in critical times, we offer our shoulder to a friend. And it didn't change for today, although we live in a different environment. It means that our strategic partnership, which is crossing the 20th anniversary this year, is natural and it is forward-looking. If you wish, it was like a sort of a Caribbean crisis for the South Asia with a happy end. It transformed the perception of the situation in the region and laid down a new background. It clearly disclosed who is who in the global fiber among great powers. It was a matter of trust 49 years ago, and we feel that such profiles today are not far away. The Shimla Agreement of 1972 is the basic legal instrument. Russia is following almost 50 years already, which clearly should prevent any discussion of the Kashmir issue in the United Nations and other platforms, since it was a watershed that identified the way how territorial disputes between India and Pakistan should be resolved. That is why we are of the principled position that no one should interfere into bilateral disputes between the two countries unless both of them jointly ask for it. Since that time, such kind of approach constitutes a solid foundation of our international partnership with India, even today. The legal background evolved into psychological and friendly perception how close, in fact, we are. We see that our positions on major global and regional issues are similar or coinciding. It is true especially in today's uncertain and unpredictable world, when global strategic stability foundations are being dismantled. While some global powers keep withdrawing from critical treaties, playing geopolitical games, and misusing unilateral pressure to retain illusions about their exceptionalism. That's why today we stand together to support the central role of the United Nations, respect for the international law and the principles of the UN Charter, establishment of just and equal multipolar world. We are naturally guided by this approach, and it makes us like-minded in our endeavors, which we undertake in the United Nations itself, as well as in the G20, WHO, BRICS, SCO, OPCW, and other institutions. During the COVID-19 pandemic, in a friendly manner, we extended maximum cooperation and support to each other by providing critical medicines, ensuring repatriation of stranded nationals of both countries, promoting dialogue in the framework of relevant multilateral platforms. Moreover, our contacts remained uninterrupted while we witnessed a series of telephone conversations between our leaders, ministers, senior officials, not to mention a remarkable visit of the Defense Minister Rajnath Singh to participate in the festive events linked to the Jubilee military parade on the Red Square dedicated to the 75th anniversary of the Soviet victory over fascist Germany. To sum up, importance of the events that happened 49 years ago cannot be overestimated since they made us unshakable in terms of what we believe in. Having this in mind, we go ahead in our preparations for the coming highest level contacts later this year, which will bring our ties even stronger. Taking this opportunity, I would like to join my president and my ambassador to wholeheartedly congratulate the Indian friends on the coming Independence Day. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Babushkin. I hope that our Indian friends appreciated your speech and the position of Russian embassy and of the Russian government on the various field of Russian-Indian cooperation. Now I would like to invite former Foreign Secretary of India and former Ambassador of India to Moscow, Mr. Krishnan Rangunath, to address the audience. Please check the connection of Mr. Rangunath. He's also his maiden participation in the online conference. Mr. Rangunath, please put on the camera and microphones for your speech. Вы звоните ему. You call him. Something failed. Yeah, microphone is there, camera. Please put camera on.
Yes, okay. All right. Can you see and hear?
No, we can only hear, Excellency. Now microphone is off, but now camera is not. Что надо ему сказать, Денис?
Sir, you need to press camera in the left down corner. So
Yes,
it will turn
I've
on.
pressed camera. Okay.
We
No,
still can't see you.
no.
So can you hear what I'm saying?
Yes, you can. We can hear. So
Okay,
camera.
I'll continue. I'll just continue. Let me just.
Yes,
say-
yes,
Yes.
Excellency, please.
Okay. Anyway, technology is wonderful when it works. Anyway, let me extend my greetings to all present and felicitations and appreciation to the Embassy of the Russian Federation and also to the Russian Cultural Center for Science and Culture, to Director Mr. Rozovsky, and to Mr. Babushkin and all your colleagues. I see a lot of friendly faces here, so my best wishes to all of them. I thank you for organizing this event, and I'm glad to participate. We have had the benefit of very thought-provoking statements, so that makes my task easier. So I'll just try to supplement what has been said, and I'll be brief in view of the time constraint. Let me first, before referring to the treaty and its aftermath, perhaps it's useful to recap and recall the main parameters of the relationship as it has evolved over the years. First, there is a sustained tradition of mutually beneficial friendship and cooperation, inspired and prompted by a recognition that the India-Russia case is a leading example of a bilateral relationship in which there is, which is really in the interest of both countries, the strong interest of both countries. Then there is respect, consistent respect and understanding and sensitivity to each other's essential core legitimate national aspirations and interests. This is an especially important component, and I would particularly draw attention to the fact that both countries have shown a deep awareness and understanding of the main forces, political, social, and strategic processes which influence events and trends in our region. This is a very abstract statement, but I think it's very important to note this because even if you do not in a position always to extend support for a particular situation, at least understanding is the basis of your action. Now, these parameters of the relationship which I've just outlined are a natural and logical product of some basic factors, such as geography, area, size, location, demography of the two countries, and in particular, the large national and human resources and good level of S&T development on both sides. And all these factors indicate the large scope and potential for mutually beneficial cooperation. Now, I would draw attention to one particularly important factor, which I think is very relevant in the development of our relations, and that is the affinity created by the fact that both countries are leading examples of large pluralistic societies marked by unity and diversity. The wisdom and maturity
Please, sir, put on your mic.
Is it all right now?
Yeah, it's okay.
I'll continue. You see, the video is not starting. That's the problem. There is some problem about starting the video, but I'll continue with this so that you don't waste any time. Now, as I said, wisdom and maturity of the leadership of both countries in recognizing the compelling rationale and the importance of this relationship. And they have nurtured and tended the relations over the years in a very serious manner. I think this is a major contributory factor which has helped create the stability and the strength of the relationship. Lastly, and not to be underestimated, is the mutual goodwill that exists in both countries among the people. This is a major factor, I think, a major benefit and advantage that we have. Now, all this has enabled the development of a relationship over the decades, which is marked by remarkable stability and which has been maintained even during periods of substantive changes in world geopolitics and in the domestic scene of both countries. And stability has been accompanied by dynamism and the capacity to adapt to change. This was strikingly demonstrated during the transition from the USSR to the Russian Federation in 1991, which was also the time of momentous changes in India's outlook and policy. Now, a brief comment on the Treaty of Peace, Friendship and Cooperation of 1971, which is the reference point for our discussion today. In the first place, it was a crucial decision in the policy-making structure of both countries and certainly of India. Seen objectively, it was an astute move meant to protect us from impending serious threat to our national welfare and security. But I must also emphasize that it was not a short-term tactical move, but a wise strategic decision, essentially defensive, not aggressive, not directed at any other country. It demonstrated mutual trust and confidence and generated high public sentiment and goodwill, both in India, goodwill in India for Russia, of course, and in both countries. And I would say that the treaty embodies and reflects the essential qualities of the relationship, which I have enumerated above. I would add also, in terms of historical analysis, that the treaty should not be seen through the lens of the East-West Cold War. It is significant, and I emphasize this, that the first half of the 70s, that is the period during which the treaty was signed, also happened to be the high point of détente between the United States and the USSR. The high-level contacts, exchange of presidential visits, the Helsinki Accords, the winding down of the Vietnam War, and so on. So that is the historical context in which the treaty should be seen. Now, while we focus on the present and the future, naturally, the 2 decades of the Soviet era following the year of the treaty are also very significant. Without proper and rational understanding of this period, we will not be able to deal effectively with the present and the future. Actually, this was a period which was very eventful in the history of India-Russia relations. Essentially, it involved a strong reaffirmation of commitment to the basic principles and also strengthening of political understanding and the initiation of second generation of major industrial projects. Now I come to a key question, which is a very natural question, that is whether this construct, the structure of stability and dynamism and continuity and change has stood the test of time, considering that over the 3 decades of this, following the transition from the Soviet Union to the Russian Federation, these 3 decades have seen momentous changes in the global environment and a lot of changes in policy, new requirements, new compulsions in both countries. I would say the answer to this question is a very affirmative yes. Nobody should doubt that this paradigm, this structure of stability and continuity has endured. And first, of course, the first indication of that was the very categorical complete picture of how intense and how effective this cooperation has grown over the last 20 years. But I would also come back to the fact that in the last few years, particularly, just in the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a quickening and the transformation of world politics, as well as the compulsions and pressures on both countries. So this presents new challenges, and I must say that we have met these challenges quite effectively. The short point is that both countries have vastly expanded their external interactions. This has been diversified. But at the same time, we have maintained the bilateral relationship as an anchor. And I would just draw attention lastly to some issues to which we need to pay attention. And in the tradition of sensitivity to our interests, issues like the question of the Indo-Pacific region, Afghanistan, the multiple polarity and multipolar world, I would suggest that multipolarity in the world, to which both of us subscribe, goes with multipolarity in Asia. And similarly, multipolarity and multilateralism are mutually reinforcing. Organizations like BRICS and SCO should prove their worth as productive multilateral institutions with positive agendas. And I believe that Russia has strongly supported India's entering the United States Security Council as a permanent member. And I trust that this position will continue because I think it will benefit both countries. Lastly, I should not omit to mention the importance of culture. In fact, Mr. Rozovsky will never forgive me if I do that, but it is an extremely important component. And I recall that in the late 80s, there were major festivals of India and Russia in each of these countries. The Russian center itself, this center where you're sitting, can you hear?
Yes, thanks a lot, Mr. Ungunath.
Okay,
Sorry
fine.
for tactical snags. We were very much impressed by your thought-provoking analysis of Soviet-Indian relations and Russia-Indian relations for the last 30 years. So thanks a lot. We are very much honored to see these words from the person who contributed a lot from your professional and private positions to the development of our friendship, cooperation, and relations in general. So you see, some of our speakers has to leave. So I feel maybe we are late. Dr. Kalita, Mr. Kalita, I feel he already left. He was about to leave. Can you hear me, Dr. Kalita? No, отключен. Mr. Bhubaneswar Kalita. Maybe he left. Mr. Mehta, Rajesh Mehta, can you contact Mr. Kalita and ask, does he left or he can speak? Okay, so then I would invite Mr. Jaiprakash Agarwal, Patron-in-Chief of India-Russia Friendship Society and prominent politician, President of Delhi Pradesh Committee, to say a few words about milestones in our relations. Mr. GP Agarwal, please. Put on your mic. I feel mic is on, but there is no sound. But we're not hearing you something. Okay, maybe later. Maybe we'll try later. So let's try how is Moscow connection working. So I invite Dr. Tatiana Shumyan, Director, Center of Indian Studies, to address our conference. Please put on your mic, Tatiana G. Put on your mic. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Now you hear me. Thank you very much. I am very happy to participate in this meeting, and I am very grateful to Dr. Razovsky for the organizing of such meeting. I think that if we are talking about Indo-Russian Treaty, 49th anniversary, I think that this is some kind of preparation to the next year when we celebrate the 50th anniversary of Indo-Russian Treaty. You hear me?
Yes, yes.
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 And we already have very interesting, and I'm happy to see here our friends, old friends, Ashok is new friends, and thank you very much once again for the invitation to participate in that. We had already very interesting presentations about the political relationship, economic relationship, and some military relationship in the military sphere. But I would like to draw attention to some kind of, know how to say, civilizational interaction between our two countries. And of course, I not need to remind that our relations in this sphere started 550 years ago from Afanasy Nikitin, and we can mention Gerasim Lebedev, who was one of the first in the logical studies in Russia, and some other persons, scholars, Kasovich, Minaev, and more. And we can remind that from Sanskrit into Russian had been translated the Bhagavad Gita and Shakuntala. And you know, our relationship really had very long and very good tradition. And I would like to mention, because we don't have much time, that last year, we celebrated the 150th anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. And we have in our institute the special seminar on that, and we'll publish, preparing for publication the speeches and papers from that seminar. And we had, together with the Indian ambassador and Indian embassy, the last year also the seminar in Yasnaya Polyana, in the state of Lev Tolstoy, and it was devoted to the relationship historical between two outstanding figures in Russian and Indian culture and history, Lev Tolstoy and Mahatma Gandhi. This seminar was very successful. And I also would like to mention that we have very interesting new project, joint project called Volga Ganga. And in the beginning of this year, in January, we had a special seminar in which we discussed what kind of development of this project we'll have in future. And I think that it is also very interesting aspect of the different kind of aspects of the relationship between our countries. I would like to add that this represents the Institute of Oriental Studies of the Russian Academy of Sciences. Institute celebrated in 218 the 200th anniversary after its establishment. And even in the joint communique between Indian and Russian leaders. This date had been mentioned, and we together celebrated this very important event. I would like to add that our relationship between Center for Indian Studies, our members of the center devoted their life to the studies of India, different aspects of India, of history, of economy, of religion, of civil society, and some other aspects of the India-Russia relations. And we, many years, I should say that it was established in 1975. The Indo-Russian Joint Commission on Cooperation in Social Sciences had been established, and we developed our contacts, our meeting. Usually, officially, the both sides heads of this commission, both the heads from directors of our institute. We started from Akademician Gafurov, Akademician Primakov, and you know, it was really very interesting and very important. We had program, we had seminars, this and that. We had published a joint publication, but unfortunately, in the beginning of 19th, you know what kind of events that happened in our countries and in India. You know, it was some kind of, you know, we did not actively develop this, but after 2000, our relationship in scientific and in political, and as we see, it was again started. And I think that now our commission is revived, and we discussed this with our leaders of our institute and with the representative of Indian Embassy, and we discussed that we should in the near future to revive the commission, to have new people, new person in this, and I think that we again will study our relationship in a more high level. And I remind also that we had also interested in yoga in our country, a lot of interest to the yoga, and I think that this is part of the Indian culture, is also very important. And I think that we should congratulate Dr. Razovsky, as I can understand, his center, which have the aim to participate in the propaganda of Russian culture, in the Russian relations in this sphere. I think that your activities is also very important, and we, you know, appreciate that. And I hope that in future we have a lot of plans. In October we'll have the conference, special conference in Moscow, which take place in the Republic 70, Theory and Practice of Constitution Development. We'll have such kind of conference in October this year. And we also will have some kind of other meetings on Buddhism, and in the framework of our institute. I think that in our institute now, the Indological Studies has a very important place, and we are happy that, because it is very important for us to have support from institute. And I would like, in conclusion, I think, yes, my time is, in conclusion, to show, I don't know how is it possible to show our latest book? Can you see? This is latest book, Russia, India, from dialogue to cooperation and partnership. And I should say that publication of this book has been dedicated to the memory of our close friend, Hari Vasudevan, Professor Vasudevan, a specialist in the very good and close friends of all of us and colleague, and we of course remember him. And I think that we'll continue our studies, and we are very thankful for support of us. And again, I congratulate Mr. Rozovsky for the organizing of this meeting. I hope that it is not the last.
No. We have 5 more speakers.
Thank you. No,
Thank
the
you.
last meeting of that, of
A
such
meeting,
type of.
sorry.
Yeah,
Meeting only beginning. It's only
it
beginning.
was only beginning. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Dear Tatiana G, we're waiting a lot, me, Raman, and all my colleagues. And I also sure that all our India friends are waiting you very, very much in India for various functions and various conferences. And I would, from bottom of my heart, to thank you for your fantastic speech, because you covered in your speech a very important place and a very important portion of our relations and cooperation in the field of humanitarian sciences, and which are very close to my heart, because exactly 40 years ago I joined our Institute of Oriental Studies.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I was at that time, I was making research in the history and the literature of neighboring country. But fortunately to my destiny, I very soon changed it for a real Bharat Mata and came to India after less than 10 years after joining the university. And really, I'm happy to learn that you are reviving the activity of various committee. I remember how I was a part of this program, and in 1987, I came for 1 month to New Delhi, to Bombay and Jaipur, to like a visiting professor, and I had a lot of interaction with best research center in India. So once again, बहुत dhanyavad, and still waiting for you in India.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We have, let's try, Mr. Agarwal, maybe you can try now, maybe something became better and we can listen to you. Your microphone is off now, put it on.
Are you getting my voice?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Please, Mr.
First, we have been, our association has been associated with your culture center for quite a long time. And I must appreciate your efforts in bringing Russian and Indians together on a platform. And many times I've seen that you have personal relations with Indian counterparts, and you have a lot of friends like me who appreciate you. And I cannot forget the day when we have given you a reception in Parliament House. This is just a small gesture. Just see the long history of Indo-Soviet Union relations, right from the time of Mr. Nehru, who started Panchsheel with Tito and Nasir. And we had very good relations with Russia, Soviet Union. Even during the time of Mrs. Gandhi, the relations was very good. The basic of relationship between the two countries is that we are socialist. We have a socialist nature, socialist pattern of societies. We work for the poor of the world, and we raise their voice, we help them, and that's why India and Russia remain together for a number of years. Even at the time of Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, there were very good relations, and I hope these relations will continue, and I must appreciate your effort. Thank you very much.
Definitely, me and all my staff, we remember that day, and my embassy colleagues, when you organized this reception, and felicitation for Russian Center of Science and Culture for its contribution to Indo-Russian relation as my personal. It was a really great and memorable day. And I appreciate your contribution to the people-to-people democracy, diplomacy, being a patron-in-chief of India-Russia Friendship Society, who is one of the most, and I also want to greet Dr. Arbi Singh, who is here, and this young gentleman yesterday celebrated his 75th anniversary. So both Mubarak sir, and we're happy that after few months, few days, few weeks, we'll meet you personally and do it face to face, eyes to eyes. Thanks a lot. So now we are happy that Meenakshi Lekhi ji, she managed to get connected with us. She's a member of parliament from a ruling party. And also old friend of Russian Center of Science and Culture. So Meenakshi ji, please do address the audience.
नमस्ते डॉक्टर रोजांस्की। भारत और रशिया का जो रिश्ता है वो दोनों देशों की कम से कम भारत की उत्पत्ति और रशियन फेडरेशन तब एग्जिस्ट करता था, लेकिन उससे पहले भी भारत और रशिया का जो रिश्ता है वो ऐतिहासिक रूप से बहुत पुराना है. इवन एंशिएंट सिविलाइजेशनली वी हैव बीन कनेक्टेड. And today is Krishna Janmashtami, and I know certain ancient coins which have been found in Russia carrying the picture of Sri Krishna. And it's only forbearance of the God that we are meeting together and commemorating a 49th anniversary of Indo-Russian Friendship Treaty. And I remember, like when you said you came to India in 1987 as a young professor, may God bless. At 84 to 90, we were in college. I was studying in college that time. And in that period, Russian Center used to be a cultural hub. And there was a lot of dramas and plays being practiced in your upper stories. And we've all come here as young students and children. And we all participated in those rehearsals. Apart from the glossy, beautiful magazines which we used to get, to read, to know about scientific development, your space battles which you took on so very well. And that was a time when Russia was imprinting its foot in the space systems. So India-Russia friendship goes a long, long way, and culturally and civilizationally, I think more than anything, we are two historical nations, and history connects us. We strive for the warmth which each one of us gives to the others, and at a family level, at a personal level, we both cherish our families. So whether it's Dostoevsky, it's Tolstoy, it's Chekhov, it's Mahatma Gandhi, Rabindranath Tagore, and so on and so forth, we are connected from our past and even present. Prime Minister Modi and your Premier Vladimir Putin are great friends, and they all, both of them strive together. And politically, I think COVID, you've already worked on COVID-19 vaccine. My congratulations to you and your president. I also feel that India and Russia, for their own survival and the survival of their people, not just from the survival point of view, but to do better for each other, need to stay together. And we need to work together, not necessarily to control the world, but to deal with the world the way world is. And my best wishes that I feel that whether it's skilling, and I oft repeated this, it's pharmaceuticals, it's skilling projects, it's high technology projects, it's defense promotion and manufacture. Russia and India can actually be the world suppliers. We have the resources and you have the technology. I only pray and wish that economically sound decisions are made on both sides, and we end up not necessarily bleeding our countries, but making our countries work for each other. And that is the way forward. My congratulations and really heartfelt blessings and wishes for two great countries, historical countries, to survive together and work together.
Meenakshi ji, for your very optimistic and very personal, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks a lot, Honorable Meenakshi ji, for your very optimistic and personal speech. It's a really enthusiasm with which you are contributing to the development of our friendly relations between our two countries. Special thanks to you for your felicitation about the vaccine against coronavirus, which in nearest future, I hope, will be spread not only in Russia, but in India and other countries, and will help humanity to fight this disease. Thanks a lot. And waiting for you in our center in nearest future as Ministry of Health and Home Affairs will allow us to function. Now we are taking care about the health of our patrons and visitors, but I'm sure that in the nearest future our door will be open. So with big pleasure, I would like to invite my personal friend, my personal colleague, whom I know from his Moscow service, like a director of the Jawaharlal Nehru Cultural Center in Moscow at the end of 90s. One of the most famous, our patrons of our Russian Center of Science and Culture, the person whom we have a lot of chance to see on the Indian TV, a scholar and a great diplomat, Dr. Ashok Sajankar. Please.
Well, thank you very much, Fyodor, for this very generous and gracious introduction. You know, after hearing your introduction, actually, I have also become very interested to listen to what I'm going to say, because you have built it up so much. But first of all, right at the very beginning, let me say it's a great pleasure for me to be here. I have, like many of those who are participating in this webinar, we have been regular visitors to your center at Firoz Shah Road. We are missing it. It's more than 5-6 months that we've been there. So we look forward that very soon we will have the opportunity to come there again. This webinar, of course, is particularly significant and important because in addition to our friends who are in the NCR region, you yourself, Dr. Rozovsky, our good friend, Mr. Roman Babushkin, who are in Delhi, like we have Meenakshi ji here, we have some of the others who are Ambassador Raghunath, who is in this region, Major Dalbir Singh, Nilakshi ji, Purnima, all the others who are in Delhi, we get to see them. But as a result of your initiative, we are also able to connect with our friends from as far away as Bengaluru. Dr. Achila Maulik is here, and also my good friend, Dr. Tatiana Shomyan from Moscow. So special thanks to you. Now, I would also like to add my felicitations to you and to the center and to the Russian embassy for getting us all together to reiterate the importance and the continuing relevance, not only of the treaty that was signed 49 years ago, but I think even more importantly, the relevance of India-Russia partnership and relationship in the world of today. Now, a great deal has been said about the civilizational roots of our relationship, about the cultural significance of this partnership in terms of political ties, in terms of social, economic ties. But I will, because the time is limited, I'll just mention one or two aspects which I think have not been mentioned so far and which are particularly relevant. Number one, I think it is useful to remember that our diplomatic ties were established even before India became independent. We became independent in August of 1947. Our diplomatic ties were established even before that in April of 1947. And of course, people have spoken as to how Gurudev and India, there was a connect, how he himself had traveled so very often to Russia at that time, and Soviet Union also. Before that, of course, Mahatma Gandhi had established his Tolstoy farm because of his conversations and dialogue with Leo Tolstoy when he was in South Africa. Even when India became independent, then Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru could see that India could not be governed, India which was just coming out of colonialism, could not be governed by the precepts of capitalism. And it was essential to govern it through the principles of social justice, of equality and human dignity. And these are the principles on which the Soviet Union had been founded. So cooperation with Soviet Union was essential. Of course, we see many of the commentators have mentioned that there were a few hiccups in the decade of the 1990s. But from the 2000 onwards, we can see that there has been an increase. It has been an upward trajectory as far as our relationship is concerned. But before coming to that, I think it will be useful also to underline and emphasize that over the last more than 73 years of our partnership, our relations have always been warm, cordial, friendly, and vibrant. I do not think that there is any other case of two big countries, of large countries, like earlier the Soviet Union and now the Russian Federation, and India, which over such an extended period have had no problems, no difficulties, no conflicts with each other at all, whether it is in the area of politics, whether it is in the area of economics, security, strategic matters. We have, by and large, always been on the same page. We have, our worldview has been similar. Our thoughts have been similar. And I think that is what has kept us together. Particularly now, if we see what has been happening over the last 20 years. We established the strategic partnership in 2000 during the first visit of President Putin to India in his capacity as President of the Russian Federation. And it was decided that there would be meetings annually. And I think it speaks to the strength and the vibrancy of this partnership that since 2000 till 2019, we have had this summit meetings alternately in the two countries every year. I'm sure there would be very many examples in the world where decisions are taken that these meetings should take place. But because of a variety of reasons, these do not happen. But I think it speaks, it underlines and emphasizes the importance that both countries give to this relationship, that these meetings have taken place every year. I remember very well in 2014, when I guess the hands of Mr. Putin were he was absorbed and occupied in what was happening either in Ukraine or in Crimea. But still, he came to India in December, if I remember correctly, for barely 14 hours so that this annual summit could take place. This year, the annual summit takes place in Delhi. So I do hope that things will become better and President Putin will be able to visit India. But when I speak about the upward trajectory of our bilateral relations, I would also like to emphasize that the last few years have really seen a very significant upward trend in our relationship. For instance, last year when Prime Minister Modi was the chief guest at the Eastern East Europe or Far East Forum in Vladivostok, and a large number of very significant agreements and decisions were taken. I will not go into the details of the defense agreements or the energy agreements, but two or three unusual aspects. India was invited by the Russian Federation to collaborate in the Arctic Circle. Now that is very significant because Arctic is an area that is full of minerals, metals. Also, that it was decided that there would be a connectivity from Chennai to Vladivostok. So this would be joining the two countries through the Indo-Pacific, and it would provide possibilities of accessing Europe through the Arctic, through the northern route. So I think these are very significant elements. Also, the interest of Russian Federation to invite India's skilled manpower and to work together in the area of agriculture and food processing. So I think there are a number of new areas that we are looking at as we go forward. Now, my final comment would be that, of course, it is always good to feel happy and satisfied at whatever we have been able to achieve. What we have navigated the last 73 years have seen very many changes. After all, 91 represented the disintegration of the Soviet Union. 9/11 took place in 2001, 2007 and 8, we had the huge international economic downturn. India and Russia have navigated all these. So I think we can be quite satisfied with that. But along with that, we also need to be mindful of the challenges that we confront in the coming years, and also see how ready are we, how prepared are we to deal with those challenges. In my view, we stand today at the threshold of cataclysmic changes in geopolitics and geoeconomics, the like of which we have not witnessed since the end of the Second World War. I think we have seen how COVID-19 has spread globally. More than 200 countries and territories are afflicted by it, how the economies of all these countries have been badly hit, how the impact of this has been on the social fabric of societies, whether it is as a result of poverty, of increasing disparity, of unemployment, of joblessness. So all these aspects are what we have. And also, in addition to that, we see a tendency to, while talking about multipolarity, tendency to ensure a unipolar Asia. I think we need to recognize that there cannot be a multipolar world without a multipolar Asia. So I think all of us, particularly Russia and India, need to get together, because we know that whether it is the global security, political and economic architecture that is going to be in the coming years is going to be very different from what it was even in late 2019. The last few months have really turned the whole world on its head. It is in the interest of both India and Russia that the outcome of this churning, as I said, is a multipolar world. Both our countries need to further intensify our cooperation and collaboration to achieve this objective. With the positive experience of the last 70 years plus, I am hopeful and confident that we will be able to ensure and promote peace, security, stability, and prosperity in our region and the world. So I think both India and Russia have a very important role to play, and both of us acting together, working together, can really make a very significant contribution to a secure, stable, and prosperous region in the world. Thank you very much once again, my good friend Fodor, for giving me this opportunity. And I wish greater successes to India-Russia partnership in the coming year, and look forward to continuing our partnership, our relationship in the coming days and months. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ashok ji, particularly for putting up the relevance of the Indian-Russian relations and partnership and today's world. You see, it's very important that you mentioned a lot about the perspectives of our relations and about new moments and new aspects of this partnership. Your speech is very important to us and very thought-provoking, and I hope that a lot of what you predicted and what you suggested will be fulfilled by our leaders and by our people. Once again, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And now I would like to invite Pratibha Prahlad ji, the charming lady, the famous dancer whose art belongs not only to India, but to the whole world. You see, to the person who is doing a great job, absolutely formidable in the promoting Indian arts, in promoting international arts. And I hope that your speech and your thoughts will give us some ideas what we should do to develop our relations in the field of art and culture. Please, madam.
Namaste and greetings to all of you. I see a very eminent panel out here. Greetings, Mr. Rozovsky, because you're doing a fantastic job in promoting the relationship between Russia and India. And in your tenure here in India, you have become more Indian than Russian, because not only do you speak our language, you also have friends across the board. And I can see, I've been hearing to very erudite speakers today, ambassadors, diplomats, politicians, Ms. Leki, and many others, and the Russian counterparts also. So thank you for having me. Since a lot has been said about diplomatic relations between Russia and India and the nature of the relationship and what happened in the last century, I'm not going to say anything about those things. I'm going to keep my talk very informal and talk to you about the cultural ties that we have between our two countries. I think, Russians and Indians have a great affinity for each other. And we have a great affinity for each other, not only, as just as people-to-people relationships, because we are both family-oriented, our values are very intact in our family structure. We are very, committed to our societies and our communities. We are religious. Both our countries are very religious, and we have a very rich tradition of arts, of painting, of architecture, of literature, and a very rich body of, performing arts tradition. The ballet came from Paris and from Russia. The ballet, the term was coined in Paris, of course. But when we refer to ballet, classical ballet, we think of Russia as the home of classical ballet. And I just want to mention to you that it was in 1830 that the first ballet on an Indian dancer called The God and the Dancing Girl, I believe, was produced in Russia, in St. Petersburg actually, in the Mariinsky Theatre. It was presented with elaborate sets, and that was the first introduction that Russians had to what they called Oriental dance forms, because those days, dances were not known as Bharatanatyam or Kuchipudi or Kathak or Kathakali as it's known today, and a mix of all these styles was performed in the West and in Russia. And when this, I was reading about it. The production was called La Bayadere, and the sets were, kind of staged by a very famous set designer from Russia, and it was in 1877 that this particular production was staged in the Mariinsky Theatre in St. Petersburg. And I believe famous dancers that we've heard of, our generation of dancers have heard of, Isadora Duncan and Anna Pavlova. I'm told that Anna Pavlova did the role of this dancing girl when it was restaged in the 1920s. as connections go, there's a folklore, like I say, in our dance history, where our famous dancer Rukmini Devi Arunde is supposed to have, asked Anna Pavlova to teach her ballet. And I believe Anna Pavlova said, "Why do you want to learn classical ballet when you have such a beautiful tradition of dance in your own country? So go back and learn the Southern style that the South Indian dancers practice." Those days it was not called Bharatanatyam, it was called Sadar. And so I believe Rukmini Devi, the story goes that she came back, she learned, from all the great gurus, she learned Sadar, she termed it Bharatanatyam and started the Kalakshetra Foundation in Chennai. The reason I'm telling you this is because, as Ms. Dekhi said, we won't grown up reading, Anna Karenina, War and Peace, Crime and Punishment. So for us, Leo Tolstoy or Chekhov or Dostoevsky are just household names. And we have a deep connect with all these characters that are portrayed in that body of rich classical literature that Russia produced. Well, let me just fast forward to the 1980s when the first Festival of India in Russia took place. I think it was 1988, and I performed too. And that was my very first trip to Moscow and to St. Petersburg. And it was exciting. It was so exciting because there was so much excitement among the audience in all the Russian cities. And because of the success of the Festival of India experiment in Russia, I think we started, the government, the Ministry of External Affairs and the ICCR started the Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Culture in Moscow. And today I know that Jawaharlal Nehru Culture Center is doing enormous work there. They not only teach Hindi, Tamil, Sanskrit, but they also teach yoga, of course, and many classical dance forms. And the exchange in the field of culture between Russia and India has been enormous in the last 3 decades that I have been part of it. So, we have many Russian dancers who come here to learn our dance forms, like Bharatanatyam or Kathakali or Kuchipudi or Kathak. And there are also many of our own dancers in Russia who are trying to learn ballet and choreography. I mean, not just ballet as a dance form, as a solo dance form, but even the concept of choreography came from Russia to India. Our dances were called dance dramas. We didn't have the concept of a choreographed dance drama. We had characterization in our dance dramas, but what we call, Indian ballet. Indian ballet was the term that was coined, after our experts went to Russia and learned the art of choreography, and they came back and they kind of applied that knowledge to Indian art forms and coined this term Indian ballet. Today we have an extremely, healthy kind of an exchange between our countries in the field of culture. You, Mr. Rozovsky, have helped the Delhi International Arts Festival, and you've helped bring some of the premier dance companies of your country, including the Bolshoi, to participate in the Delhi International Arts Festival. We've had musicians, we've had folk dancers. So Russia has a very vibrant tradition of the arts, music and dance, and so do we. And we are both gay people. We are vivacious. We are external in the sense that we don't, we are not very subtle in pronouncing our thoughts or our ideas. We are, we have a way of communicating. And I know that Indian cinema is extremely popular in Russia across board, not just from Raj Kapoor onwards, but even today, Indian cinema is extremely popular. So I know that we are in a safe space as regards to our friendship, as regards to our relationship, as regards to our respect for our different cultural traditions. I think it's important to understand each other's cultural traditions because you develop a healthy respect when you know it and you understand it, and it's through respect that very harmonious and deep friendships are formed. Having said this, I thank you for having been a wonderful friend, not just to me personally, but a wonderful friend to my country, to India, for the deep respect you have for our culture, for our traditions, and for always being willing to partner with anything, any initiative that we put forth. And I fondly recall my own performance tours in Russia as a solo dancer when I had, emotional Russian audiences crying when they saw my performances, and I never really understood why, but I know because, Russians and Indians have a heart-to-heart connection. It is not just a formal relationship, it's a very informal relationship, and I'm deeply grateful to both the people of your country and to the people of my country for furthering our cause and for furthering the many different strategic partnerships that we are involved and engaged in. And we hope, and I hope, and I think, what should I hope? I think I'm optimistic that we have an extraordinarily good future looking forward. So I know time is short, and I'm going to end with these words that I found when I was, trying to do some research. As stated in the St. Petersburg Declaration of June 2017 between India and Russia, I quote, "Advancing the comprehensive development of the Indian-Russian relations is an absolute priority of the foreign policy of both states. We will continue to widen our scope of cooperation by launching large-scale initiatives in different spheres and enhance and enrich our bilateral agenda so as to make it more result-oriented." Unquote. India and Russia will continue to remain a role model for harmonious and mutually beneficial partnership and strong friendship between two powerful nations. And this will be to the this will actually send a role, give out a message and be a role model for the international community as a whole, because it shows the world what two powerful and culturally rooted countries can do to change perceptions and the idea of humanity. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, dear Pratibha Ji, for your informal, personal, and very emotional speech, which I appreciate with Mr. Babushkin a lot. We are happy that your contribution of Indian dances, which are very popular in my country, and your contribution will be appreciated a lot, as well as your activity as the director of the International Arts Festival. I'm sure that, unfortunately, this year, your trip and the trip of your dance company to Moscow to participate in the celebrations of the 75th anniversary of Soviet people and Great Patriotic War and performance on the Red Square, which were postponed due to COVID pandemic, maybe will happen next year in this format or any other. And I am sure that the cooperation and the exchange in field of dance between our two countries will continue, and these relations will be very prosperous in the years to come. Thanks a lot once again. We missed now Mr. Bhubaneshwar Kalita, who just 40 minutes ago left to the airport to catch his flight to Assam, to his constituency. But we have with us Dr. Rajesh Mehta, who is the General Secretary of this foundation, where Mr. Kalita is the president. Is a very reputed foundation, India-Russia Foundation, created by late Mr. Aaron Anil, our personal and close friend of Russia. And we have here participating various people like Sudhir Sabarwal, Vice President of this foundation. We have Dheeraj Ahuja, we have Sanjay Khanna, and maybe others, I don't have the full list, who are taking part in this web conference. So I request Mr. Rajesh Mehta, General Secretary of Russia-India Foundation, to take the floor. Please, Dr. Mehta.
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Rozovsky. It was an excellent deliberation. We heard a lot of good things about what we knew already, but we are really convinced that we have a real brother in Russia who has to take us forward. Excellencies, distinguished participants, dear guests. It gives me immense pleasure to participate in this seminar with the theme Russia and India, Major Milestones in the History of Relations, which celebrates the 49th anniversary of the Soviet-Indian Treaty of Peace, Friendship and Cooperation. Friendship between our two countries has been built on strong foundations of historical, cultural, people-to-people ties, and that's why they are so enduring. Indeed, our ties are emotional, where there is high expectations of each other. This is a natural partnership like no other. While the theme is contemporary and relates to my generation, its roots are much deeper. There is partnership and has withstood the test of time. This is a partnership where there has never been any difficulty or any difficult moment between us. It's a relationship of trust and warmth. We are more than friends. We are brothers. There are deep similarities between Sanskrit and Russian with many, many common words. So there are many common things between us. In the 15th century, the Russian merchant Afanasy Nikitin was one of the first Europeans to document his travel to India. And this story is known as the journey beyond 3 seas. But for COVID, we would have planned many, many programs in this year to celebrate Mr. Nikitin's visit to India long time back. But we'll take it forward very, very soon. Russia was always seen as a country with great achievements, and this can be seen in literature, mathematics, science, space, sports, and practically every area of human endeavor. The people of Russia are immensely talented and hardworking. Therefore, even during the difficult time of the disintegration of the Soviet Union, we were always confident that Russia would rise very quickly. Indeed, Russia continues to impress the world with its many achievements, and we, as your friends, take pride in these achievements. Today, the people of India recall with fondness and gratitude Russia's assistance to the Indians in building our infrastructure after a long year of colonial exploitation. People still remember Hindi Rusi Bhai Bhai. The steel plant at Bhilai became a symbol of our eternal partnership and friendship. Many Indian students benefited from educational opportunities in Russia and on their return contribute to the nation building in India. The wide popularity enjoyed by Indian movies in Russia is because our people are in many ways family oriented and therefore very similar. But what we remember is that Russia always stood by us. Partnership between our two countries was aimed at promoting global peace and aimed at no one. We are here to celebrate this historic Soviet-Indian Treaty of 1971 against the backdrop of the Bangladesh War, which gives the people of India immense strength during these difficult days and gave guidance to our relations. This treaty was the manifestation of shared goals of the two nations, as well as the common aspirations to strengthen regional and global peace and security. Russia has always stood by us, and the people of India will naturally look towards Russia during difficult times. And India will always celebrate as a friend Russia's successes. The signing of the treaty, therefore, was a very important milestone and turning point in history. It had great significance in the shaping of history. Its importance can never be underestimated. I am happy to recall that the most important political initiative between India and Russia was the Strategic Partnership Agreement Declaration between the two countries in 2000. In fact, President Vladimir Putin said that this declaration on strategic partnership between India and Russia was a truly historic step. Such sentiments were fully reciprocated on the Indian side. Strategic means that our partnerships for a long distance, and there is no area in which we are not looking to work with each other. These are therefore special and comprehensive ties with few parallels in the world today. This friendship was elevated to a special and privileged strategic partnership in 2010. Our two countries have always shared aspirations to strengthen our joint activity in such spheres as defense, nuclear energy, oil and gas, among other areas. Our governments are working closely to improve business conditions so that our economic activity reflects the true potential that exists. The International North-South Transport Corridor promises to improve connectivity and benefit business. We look forward to greater cooperation in the frontier areas of science and also at people-to-people level. It should be made easier for Russian tourists to travel to India and Indians to visit Russia. This is consistent with the deep affection that we have for each other. We look forward to more successes and more milestones in our bilateral ties. We look forward to taking our relations to new heights. In fact, Russia's assistance to India Gangyan project, which aims to put an Indian into space from the Indian soil, is indicative of this special relationship. I would like to commend the Embassy of Russian Federation in India and the Russian Center for Science and Culture for having set up this seminar, which is very timely and necessary. Let me congratulate each of the participants on this happy occasion and wish you good health and happiness. And let us celebrate the eternal friendship between India and Russia. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Mehta, for your informative and emotional speech, and particularly your last words could be considered like a vote of thanks in our usual ceremony which we have. But we have one more speaker, more panelists, and who represent the very esteemed and very respected community of Russian language teachers, of the scholars who made tremendous research work in the Russian literature, in teaching the Russian language, as well as in various culturological projects. And one of them, the person who was also awarded by a Pushkin Medal from the head of Russian president, is Dr. Nilaksha Surinarayan, our very close friend for many decades and our personal friend of the Russian Center of Science and Culture, as well as of Tatiana Perova and mine. So Dr. Nilaksha ji, please tell us about the very important part of Russian-Indian relations in the field of language and literature. Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fyodor Razovsky, for your very, very generous introduction to me. Yes. So esteemed members of the panel sitting on the dais in their own homes today, in their own homes and offices, and dear friends, we are indeed meeting under very unique circumstances, and it is heartening to observe that we are not letting the pandemic deter us from marking this unique date in the history of Indo-Russian relations. So thanks to the organizers, thanks to respected Mr. Razovsky and his team in the Russian Culture Center for bringing us all together today after so long. I'm seeing all these wonderful faces. I am the last speaker, and this has its advantages and disadvantages. A lot has already been said, so I may be repeating myself, but I hope I will not go into the disadvantages, and I think I will dwell on some aspects of the outcome of this treaty, which I think need to be highlighted and remembered. And I'm going to talk about the opportunity that was generated in the field of higher studies for Indian students. No doubt, Soviet Union had opened its doors for foreign students already in the mid-60s, and Indian students were also a part of these batches. But the treaty gave a new impetus, and from then on, a steady stream of students, many of them from very humble backgrounds, found their way to various universities all over the Soviet Union. Actually, in that period, Indian students constituted the largest number of foreign students studying in the Soviet Union. And this body of the alumni has contributed tremendously in nation building in India in all walks of life, be it engineers, doctors, physicists, teachers, scholars, and even actors and artists. They have excelled in their professions, and many have attained positions of eminence. This opportunity, of course, did not only chalk out an illustrious career path for them, but also acquainted them closely with the rich Russian language and the very rich Russian culture. And this love for Russian culture has remained with them through their lives. And this actually binds us all together even to this day. The other aspect of this treaty in the field of education that needs to be highlighted is the active exchange of teachers and scholars from the Soviet Union to India and vice versa. This has also been mentioned, but I think most of you will agree that for scholars pursuing Russian studies in India and Indology in the Soviet Union, this was the golden period. There was a huge spurt in translations of literary works, into most of the Indian languages, generating an interest amongst the Indians to learn more and more about the Soviet Union. And we can also talk of the influence that Russian writers had on Indian writers, leading to enrichment of literature in India on the whole. Besides that, Russian teachers coming regularly to India under this program gave a great opportunity for Indian students to learn the language from native speakers. The dedicated Russian teachers set high standards for the students. And recently at a seminar, one of the Indian teachers teaching Russian in Kolhapur, I think she's present in the audience today, Megha Pansare. She was asked how she speaks such impeccable Russian, almost without an accent, without having studied in Russia. And she said it was all due to the tireless efforts of the Russian teachers who came to Kolhapur in the 70s, and they came to many other cities in India. So we really had a great opportunity to learn directly from them. So one could go on about the benefits of this treaty, but we're also aware that with the breakup of the Soviet Union, the field of education and culture suffered the most. The teachers from Russia stopped coming. It became difficult for teachers from India to go, and there was no exchange of books and journals for a long time. As one Indian professor of Russian studies put it very emotionally, he said, "We felt like orphans." But as has been mentioned several times today, India and Russia friendship has the remarkable fortitude to overcome any hurdle. From the point of view of once again, revival of educational exchange programs, students are going to Russia to pursue higher studies. And research in the field of comparative, young students of Russian studies are getting more and more interested in doing this comparative research. And there is generally a feeling of bonhomie. In 2018, we at the University of Delhi organized an international conference celebrating 70 years of the establishment of the Russian department in the University of Delhi and also Indo-Russian diplomatic relations. And our conference was called India-Russia Cross-Cultural Synergies. This brought almost 60 participants from all over Russia to the conference and showed the great interest that exists amongst not only scholars, but also the general public for each other. And I think we chose the topic very, very successfully. It truly exhibited the synergy that flows from one to the other. Having said that, I would like to caution that there is still a lot that needs to be done. And I keep kind of repeating this very often, that we need again to renew this exchange of teachers and professors under the cultural exchange program, which would bring teachers here, for a lengthy period of time and make them take up certain programs in the university and vice versa. And I also have the suggestion that we need to set up a joint school of interpretation, which would enable Indian students to take up this profession. I think in India, we lack this, these expertise to a large extent. So that was my short speech. And in conclusion, I would really like to thank you for inviting me to this occasion and giving me this opportunity to voice my thoughts. I'm actually missing coming to the Russian Cultural Center. I'm missing coming and attending all the functions. And I hope that all this will be over soon and we will revive our contacts again. And it won't have to be just through the webinars and through this long distance. Thank you very much once again for your attention and wishing you all good health and success. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Suryanarayan. I'm sure that Russian Center and Russian Embassy will resume very soon the connection eyes to eyes and our beloved functions which you all miss. And particularly thanks about your suggestion about the development of India-Russian relations in the field of education. And I hope that Mr. Babushkin will inform Russian bureaucracy about the idea to create the joint school of interpreters, which we need in India and in Russia very, very much. Because there is a lack of interpreter. I don't know, I cannot explain why, but the problem exists, and really it's a good idea by creation of such an institution. I don't know where, on the base of JNU or Delhi University or Hyderabad University, I mean, former Mr. Moria, where he was Vice Chancellor of the Institute of Foreign Languages, of English and Foreign Language, or on the basis of Russian Center, it will really contribute to the development of our relations. You see, now the list of speakers is over. We had 12 speakers and they were very much disciplined. We managed to do it in 2 hours, and me and Mr. Babushkin and my team sitting here, we respect a lot, we express a lot of respect and thanks to all our famous panelists who spent their time and did absolutely absolutely informative and analytic and emotional reports in which covered various fields of our relations, not only political, but also in very various fields. It's very important that we managed to do it in time, but I feel it will not be fair if we don't give chance to 40 other people from 9 cities of India and Russia, even to ask some questions to our panelists. Some of them unfortunately left, but most of them are here with you. So I'll ask my technical team, if somebody wants to speak, you please start your microphone and present yourself and ask some questions, please. Any well-wishers who would like to speak? Or sometimes you can raise your hand, because, but not everybody is with video facilities. So please, there is an option to raise your hand and to speak. And to ask them to ask questions, if any. I understand 2 hours is quite a long time and very informative speeches by our speaker. So please, dear colleagues, if any. So, yes, it's 2 o'clock, it's a lunchtime. It's very important in COVID pandemic to take food in time. So I express to whom I can see. You see, I see my friend Jasbir Nichal, Purnima, I see Ravinder Singh, Sudhir Sabarwal, and many others. So once again, Dheeraj Ahuja, RB Singh, yes, he is making you hear. You want to speak, RB? Talbir, you want to speak? No, all just salute. Okay, once again, I'm waiting for all of you in my center as soon as, who? Purnima, you want to speak?
Yes, congratulations to conduct this very good program and to invite all of us after a long time on one floor. We can see faces of our all friends, and I really congratulate Russian government and Russian citizens to find the first vaccine for COVID-19. I hope this is a great service for humanity from Russian scientists. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Huh? Thank you, Purnimaji, thank you. So once again, my old dear friends, really happy for my staff, for my team, for me personally, really happy 2 hours. And once again, thank you for your noble thoughts and noble wishes. I am sure will succeed in cementing our friendship and developing of our cordial relations between India and Russia. Dhanyabad. Pir milenge. All the best.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.